is Mallory, here to show you this week's YA Take and Make Craft woven coasters. We are going to quickly go over how to weave a cool new coaster. All right, so to start off, you're going to start with your loom. Yes, it's just a piece of cardboard. What you're going to start off doing is marking off 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch marks into the middle of the cardboard. That will be marking where both your starting and stopping point for your weaving will be. Then you're going to mark off on each side, the top and the bottom, 1 centimeter long, wide notches, and then you're going to cut them so that they make little grooves. Make sure that they're even and that you start on the same side for both centimeters. Sometimes rulers start a little bit, there's a little bit of an extra on the ruler. Make sure you're starting on the first centimeter. So then they have nice even notches. All right, step 2, we have to make what is called the weft. So to start, this is the weft. This is what you're going to be weaving all of your textile into. So this will also make the fringe. So you're going to use whatever color yarn you want to start with. Your kit should come with multiple colors, and you can pick whichever one you would like. Cut a significant amount of it off, and then you're going to start off by taping one end to the back, and then you're going to wrap it around the first notch and go down to the second notch, back around and back around until you've covered the whole thing. And this is what we're going to use to weave our coasters. So to start your weaving, you're going to need a needle and a piece of yarn. I am going to start with blue because blue is one of my favorite colors, but you can start with whatever color you'd like. You should have 3 to 5 colors in your kit, so you can start with whatever one you want. We're going to be doing a stripe pattern, so eventually you can use all the colors if you'd like. So I started off by threading the needle with my yarn, leaving a big chunk so that, or a big length so that I don't end up unthreading my yarn in the middle of working. And then I've got a pretty lengthy bit of yarn. You want to You want to pull at least an arm's length worth of yarn, but the longer you shoot, or the longer your strand, the thicker your stripe pattern is going to be. So if you have a shorter length of yarn, your stripes will be very thin. If you have a large chunk of yarn, your stripe will be very large. You might have to do some experimenting to see how much yarn you need to make whatever widths you would like without wasting it. Or you can just start with a really long one and then cut it when you want to switch colors. However you'd like to do it. But it's always better to start with longer bits of yarn than shorter bits. You can always add more yarn, but that's more weaving at the end, or that's more weaving the ends in at the end, which is kind of a pain. So if you want to avoid that, it's better to start with a longer thing that you can cut than to have to restart multiple times. Okay, so to do this, so cut that last 2 seconds. So to start, we are going to start by going under the first strand of the weft and over the second, under, over, for as far as you can get. Obviously I couldn't get very far. And then just keep doing that all the way down your weaving. Hopefully Mr. John is going to speed run this so we don't have to watch me do it in real time. But if you want to watch me do it in real time, that works too. Okay, till the end. Now I'm going to pull it through about as far as I want my string to go. we're gonna do about that. So you want to line it up where your line was, because that's the start of your weaving. And then what we're going to do next is our next line. So you're going to take your needle again, and instead of going over, which is what we did on the last line here, we're going to go under where we went over before, and over where we went over under before. Over, under, the opposite way we did it the first time. And that will create the basket weave kind of pattern that makes the fabric. So you're going to pull it most of the way full. Sometimes it's going to bunch. That happens. It's okay. Don't let yourself get frustrated. Easily fixed. Keep going. Hopefully we have some jazzy music, because this is going to take a while. I'm going to show you how to do the first couple and then speed run the rest of it on your. Oh, okay. Don't do what I just did and accidentally stab it through the yarn. That will not help. But if you do that, you just put your thread right back through there and pull it out and start again. Oops. And if you end up having to tear it just a little bit, that's okay too. See? Easy fix. All right, continuing on. Careful not to stab in the yarn. Under, over, under, over, under. Okay. Yes, it will feel like it's getting very unwieldy, but it'll be okay, I promise. Okay, so now now we have our two lines. We want to straighten everything out, make sure it's all nice and straight. And then for right now, we're just gonna tuck them together with our fingers because it's a little bit tight. You want to try to be not too tight and not too loose with it. If you're too tight, eventually it'll start pulling in and then it'll pull off of your loom. I learned this the hard way the first sample I made. So you want to be loose, but not too loose. You want it to stay together, but you want it to also not be so tight that it falls off. Okay, we're gonna pause. Okay, we are back with a fork. So I'm going to show you how to push things gently. So you're gonna take your fork once you've got two rows going, and you're going to gently use it between the weft to tuck everything nice and snug up to that line. So it's all nice and even and fairly well put together. Then you're going to just keep going until you want to change colors. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the video going, but hopefully we can just put some music on and speed through this. All right. Okay, and when I said don't be too tight, this is kind of what I meant, because if you're too tight, it starts pulling in, and the tighter you go, the more it'll pull in until it starts pulling off of those very tenuous little tongs. So we're gonna tuck that up with our fork and keep going. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of this stripe off camera, and then I will come back to show you what to do with the next stripe. Okay, I have now reached the end of my color, so it's time for me to switch off. I cut off the tail here. I left a little bit of a tail because eventually, once I get to the next color, I'm going to weave this in so it's nice and secure. That will be what I show you when we get to the next color. But for now, we're going to start with my next. I went with blue again because, again, favorite color. So this is the next color I'm going to do. So I'm going to thread it through my needle just like I did the first time. And just like the first time, we're going to leave a nice long tail so we don't end up threading it in the process. And now you can see, before we move on, I'm going to show you a little bit of what I meant about how tight, making sure you're aware of how tight you're weaving, because as the tighter it gets, the more it's going to bow in. And I don't want to get any tighter than this because otherwise it will start pulling off of the loom and then you will break it and have to start all over again, which I don't think you want to do. I definitely wouldn't want to do that. Okay, so we're going to start. So I ended up being on the same end as my first start. That's great. It doesn't have, if you end up being over here, that's okay too. What we're going to do is we're going to take our color, our next color, and we're going to go in. I ended on an over row, so I'm going to start on an under row and just weave in again and do the same thing I did before. I'm leaving that tail extra, and then I will show you what to do with that once we get a little bit of a chunk of the darker blue in. But for right now, we're going to leave that, pull our thread all the way as far through as we want. And I picked a bunch of thread because I want really wide stripes. If you want shorter stripes, again, just make this string stronger or shorter. Okay, so I'm going to leave that so there's an extra tail, and I'm going to finish the end of this, and then I'll show you how to weave in the end. You can do all of the weaving in of the ends at the very end, or you can do it as you go. Kind of depends on how your workflow usually goes and how you like to do things. Whoops. Before, if it gets a little tangled, that's okay. It's easily fixed. So you want to hold it down so it doesn't go anywhere. Now I'm going to take my fork and tuck it nice and tight up to the next line. Okay, and before I go any further, I'm going to show you how to weave the end in just so we can move along. So I undid my thread, or undid my needle to the thread, and now I'm going to weave it. I'm going to take the tail end of the new color. I'm going to weave it in a little bit. Doesn't have to be all the way on there, it just needs to be on there enough to be able to pull it. And then I'm going to put the thread in the edge of my weaving, about half an inch, maybe a little bit more, not less, because then it might get too short and unravel. And you're going to pull it all the way through so it's nice and tight like that. You can't see it. Then trim off the extra. And if you move it around a little bit, you can kind of hide that color and you can't tell it was there. And now this is not going to go anywhere. I'm going to do the same for the top just to get it out of the way. And then I'm going to continue on with my weaving, but I'll show you how to do this one more time, assuming you don't have a major struggle with threading your needle like I just did. Okay, so same thing with this. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight. And then okay, it's going to loosen up. I'm going to tuck it in through that first row all the way down and just gently pull it through until it's nice and tight. You don't want to get too tight, but I'm gonna play with it a little bit to loosen it up just a little. Tighten these up. If this top row is not too tight, don't worry about it. When we pull the weft off of the loom, we will sort that out. Okay, so now that is all together. I'm going to go ahead with my next stripe, and then once I get far enough into the next stripe, I will be able to tuck this in. But you want to try to tuck in the first color into the second color and the second color into the first color so that they just kind of cross each other and are connected. But yeah, I'm going to continue on, and I will join you when I'm ready to take this off of the loom. Okay, now I have finished the base of my weaving. I wove in all of those ends the way I showed you earlier, and everything is ready to be taken off of the loom. So to do that, we're going to flip it over. Backside is just a bunch of strings. You're not going to need this for your weaving. So what we're going to do is cut all of them off. Okay, so take the tape off of the ends that I taped down to make sure nothing moved around. And now we're going to take it off of the loom. So you might need to tug a little hard, but that's okay. It's just string, it's going to bounce back. All right. Pull it off. Okay, so as you can see, this is the finished thing. It's all ready to go. Maybe shouldn't have picked light blue for the background, but that's okay. Okay, so as you can see, this top part is a little bit loose. We're gonna fix that, and we're gonna secure everything down. So the way we do that is by tying all of these ends together. So we'll start on one end and just do a simple double knot. So we'll tie it once, tie it twice, and then that is done. And just go all the way down to the end. Okay, I am going to tie the rest of them and then come back and show you how to finish it off. Okay, I left the final tie so I could show you what to do if you end up with 3 strands instead of 2. That was a miscalculation, but that's okay. We are going to tie 2 of them together with the 3rd. And then one of the extras and tie it with that 3rd. Just to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, so now, as you can see, that loose end is no longer there. You might notice that my coaster has gone a little bit tight with my weaving, and that's what happens when you do that. So you want to try to be as loose as possible. Okay, so now to finish off, so we don't have all of these dangly ends, we are going to trim them. Then be all done. So you're going to trim them so that they're in a nice straight line, as short as you'd like. Sure, that's a great audio. Okay, and just straight across. Okay, and that is our finished, fully functional coaster. I hope you guys make some amazing coasters with your kids, and I would love you to send me some pictures. Good luck and happy Thanksgiving. Have a good day.